All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Hertz, and it is Thursday, September 27th. One more day of the week, of the month, and of the quarter. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. We'll go over today's events, and we'll go from there. A little bit of strategy. Tesla, you're probably seeing this all over the place. A few different stories today that monopolize the financial media, but they're going to be talking about this for a while. SEC out with saying that I guess they're going after Mr. Musk. So I tweeted this out. It's such a sensitive subject. Tesla's one of those stocks on Twitter that everybody seems to have an opinion about it, and is also very passionate. So I kind of stay away from it. I don't trade Tesla much, but actually I traded a little bit earlier this week, and thankfully I got out of it. So what did we do today? Basically, in the S&P, we finished up 36 basis points, but it's pretty crazy that we are seeing these types of days where this is obviously S&P futures, not SPY. So, but we're basically giving back, and we kind of turn the page like right around lunchtime, and we just give it all back. So futures were up going into the open, but we basically this is a day trader's paradise if you're really good at day trading. For me, I'm more of a swing trader. I do day trade, and will day trade more depending on the environment. But it's you kind of have to have this in the back of your mind that we're seeing these intraday reversals that I think a while ago we didn't really see those. Usually once the market goes in one direction, it usually stays in that direction, but not right now. We're seeing, I think, a lot more reversals than we used to. So we still finished up on the day, but you have to really be careful about how you add your risk, right? If you're adding your risk like in the first couple hours of the day, we saw this about a month ago, I think, too. So it just isn't the right time to do it. And of course, when you're swing trading, I think personally, and again, this video, I always say this. I say this. I should, and I do say this every video, is that this video is for information purposes only. But for me, for swing trading, I try to stay disciplined, and even if I start to really like the setup, I like to try to add the majority of the trade at the end of the day, because you just get so much more information about how the candle is going to look. And if we go back to the daily chart, so we canceled out 1, 2, 3, 4 days, which I think was just 80 basis points from the beginning of this, and we're not closing on the highs right now. We don't have the strength to do it, but still a nice save where you would want to see a bounce at that 20-day moving average, which is the blue line. So this trend's still intact. You just really have to be careful about how you're adding trades. Nasdaq held up better today. Remember yesterday it gave back, we had this crazy looking candle as we gave back all the gains. And the Nasdaq had more of an intraday move than the S&P yesterday. Today it actually held up pretty well, up 95 basis points. So all in all, not bad. And we'll go over a couple of those performers. I just want to hit the small caps. I'll just bring up IWM rather than the futures for this one. Small caps are the one that seem a little bit vulnerable. They finished flat again. So this was something that I addressed in yesterday's video, that I'm a little bit worried about the small caps, and I'm wondering if the small caps are giving us some type of a signal. And you could use this. You don't have to just sit there and sit on your hands. You could say, okay, if small caps are maybe giving us are a little bit weaker here, and if you believe that they're giving you a little bit of a warning sign, you can just change your positioning a little bit. Maybe have a little bit of a hedge in place. And I'm going to talk about what I did today. So that's the major indices. Let me just talk about two stocks really quickly. There was a lot of pre-market notes that we went over at the Tribeca during the Tribeca Trade Group pre-market session. We do these pre-market sessions every morning to kind of come up with a plan for the day. We come up with we go over the big analyst notes. If there's a lot of street high price target raises. There was one for Apple. Apple is now out and above this area, so we'll see where this gets to. But that's your trigger base, basically. If you wanted to go long here, if you didn't get long here, where your thinking was that it was going to break out, I still think here is not bad. Would have been nice if that's the case. I did not participate in Apple. I want to start participating a little bit more in Apple, just as much as I trade Amazon. I trade Amazon an awful lot. And that's kind of been my fail-safe name whenever there's a market dip or there's something happening on the tape, just like yesterday where everything was getting sold. I always go into strength, and that name is Amazon for me. But Apple is also kind of the same thing, right? These are names that are just crushing their earnings reports. So money usually flows back into the real, to the big winners and really where the solid results have been. So, Amazon has worked really, really nicely for me. Google woke up a little bit. I think you have to be mindful of what Google is coming up into, the 50-day moving average and the bottom of value. So you have overhead resistance. Netflix, I think just hasn't been moving with a lot of momentum to the upside, but it is above this line. I mean, I think I could draw at this point a little bit of a trend line in here and say, hey, it's broken above, kind of a weird looking line, but it did get away from that 50-day moving average. Notice it's approaching this earnings gap, so maybe that's why it's pausing a little bit of memory in there. So I'll talk a little bit about what I did today and what my strategy is for tomorrow quarter end. But yeah, I mean, here's my trades for Amazon. I've been shorting. I've had on bull put spreads, so I make money when Amazon either goes up a little bit or stays exactly where it is. Those have been big winners for me. And then I also had on call spreads where I've been managing them. I've been putting new ones on, taking them off for profits. I just took one off yesterday for profits and then put a new call spread on right at the end of the day. So I mentioned, I practice what I preach here. But right at the end of the day, this was 10 minutes before the close yesterday, I added this one and was able to take a target. I'm still long this call spread, but in this market, this is a short-term option play, have to take targets. Fizz, F-I-Z-Z. I don't think this name is on people's watch list too much, but come on. Oh, Thinkorswim. There we go. Yeah. So there's two things going on here, right? Bottom of support, or bottom of value support, and it also started to break the uptrend. So this worked for me. This one I did add in the beginning of the day, and again, not a huge position. So most of my positions right now that I'm just kind of participating right now in the market. I hedge myself a little bit with Qs today. Goose, which was a real nice play. I think I talked about Goose in yesterday's video, so I'm not going to go over it too much. Kind of a doji looking candle for the day. We'll see where this goes tomorrow. So I took profits and I kind of rolled my profits out. That's what you do with option positions, is you take your profits in the shorter term ones. If you want to stay in the name, you roll it out. You roll out and up a little bit. But for me, it's quarter end tomorrow. So, could there be selling tomorrow? There could be. We saw that after the Fed yesterday, and there wasn't any major. There was just the give back of some of the move intraday today. There wasn't a heavy MOC imbalance today. But who knows what's going to happen tomorrow for quarter end. So I would rather err on the conservative side for tomorrow. It's the last, like I said, it's the last day of the week, the month, and the quarter. I'm up nicely for the month. I've put together, I think now four profitable months in a row. And I want to play a little defense. I'm not trying to be a hero tomorrow. There's a little analogy that I talk about, and I'll probably, if I do a weekend video, talk a little bit about that. But it's very important when I like to have I call it the Bill Belichick mentality of trading, right? I mean, he's, regardless of what kind of fan you are, I'm a Giants fan. But the Patriots managed to do well every year, even though that they get the draft picks at the end of the first round. They still manage to kind of make the playoffs or win the Super Bowl. Basically, I think every season of the last 10 years, I would imagine they've made the playoffs. I don't think that I don't have that stat in front of me. But anyway, that's my point is his philosophy. It's taking me a long time to make the point. It's his philosophy is he looks at one game at a time, right? And if you do that, if you concentrate on the opponent in front of you, and you beat that opponent, you're going to end up having a good season. You probably make the playoffs. It's the same for me. It's the same thing with trading, right? If you concentrate on having a profitable month, one at a time, not shooting for the for the stars, kind of grind it out every day. Don't take unnecessary risks. Just be smart about your trading. You should, if you're doing that and you're doing some other things in your trading, which I can't get into in this video, but you're being disciplined and you're being patient with your trade setups. You should have a profitable month, right? And to get a nice profitable year, you just string together month after month, 1 month at a time. And even if you want to take off a big bunch of your trades at the end of the month too, that's also a strategy to do, so that you can kind of wipe the slate clean. And I did that at the end of August as well, and that worked pretty well for me too. All right, so that's my major strategy. I'm not taking not putting any major trade. Did not put on any major sizable trades on today. I didn't do it. I won't do it tomorrow either, because I want to preserve this month's gains. All right. So I'll go through today's option activity. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this in every video, because really, you should kind of have to. This is the value that I provide. Is we look at these are all of today's aggressive option trades that our system OptionX points out for us, that we have over here. Which you could subscribe to this. This is on our website. It's OptionX. It's $129 a month. You'll see all of the aggressive trades that hit the tape. That's really what we're looking for, and also your large blocks, your spreads, and your ETFs. And you can watch this, and the ticker scrolls through, and we keep on here, and we separate them so they're nice and organized into categories, right? And then you could also do whatever you want in terms of querying and so forth. But that's basically how that works. So you can actually put together your watch list, any names that you want to see, and you can keep that on there. But as far as today's option activity, these were all the aggressive trades. Were some trades that I thought were notable on the day. Ali. This is a name that we've seen option activity before, and the name hasn't done anything. And I know these financials have been a mess. For me, my system is I look at these option signals and trades as basically ideas, and then I filter them through my system and my technicals, and that helps me decide whether or not I'm going to take a trade. This one, not yet. I would rather have this thing start to. I don't really have a level to trade against, and that's why I would wait for the 200-day moving average. But I think it's notable. Maybe if another big block comes in, maybe I would be more enticed to get involved in Ali. There was a tiny bit of JP Morgan calls today. These financials, I just don't know what to think about this group right now. I don't want to kind of force to get in here. JP Morgan is one of my go-to banks. That when I traded this last week. And you got to be quick, I think, with these banks. So I talked about that already. I'm not going to, in a previous video, I'm not going to go into detail about that. Let me go through the rest of the trades. But for now, I remain underweight the financials, even though they've come in pretty decently. EA, this was an option trade that we've seen a lot of activity in, and all the way back here, and it fell down on announcement of their video game being delayed. But it's been crawling back here, and the option activity has been pretty steady. So, if you didn't get in here, if you were lucky enough at the 128 level and you got in someplace here, we talked about this VPOC being taken out, Virgin Point of Control. Man, these are so good. to have on your screens as places to either enter into a trade for a reversion. We talked about this today in AGN, right? I have a small position on an AGN. It's trying to break out. There's a VPOC up here, which I would be targeting 197. However, it just it can't seem to really hold a bid and really get going. And we talked about this. I said 192.5, which we talked about for those of us who have this trade on. It ran right into this VPOC on the 5 minute, and really came off for the rest of the day. So these are really good levels that these version point of controls. Why are these, by the way, substantial or significant? Well, it's because there was a lot of volume at this particular price before, and price has a memory to it. People use price for different triggers, right? And if there was a lot of volume that happened before, where a lot of buyers and sellers met up, traders remember that, and that's exactly where it got to, and then it reverted. So anyway, just to finish here with that example, Hilton. I would have added a full-size swing trade today, or at least legged into it. This was mentioned, I think, on CNBC's Fast Money or halftime show. I like the chart here on multiple time frames. So Hilton, keep in mind, Vail Resorts reports tomorrow morning. These hotel stocks are looking pretty good. That's a buy signal over the 200-day moving average, in my opinion. Also on the weekly chart, I think it looks pretty good too. Reclaim this 50-day moving average. You got an MACD crossover on the weekly chart for longer trade. Now keep in mind, what did they do here in Hilton? They bought a spread all the way out to January. So when we see a long-dated option play, then you could use the weekly chart. If you see something like weeklies, then I don't think a weekly chart, if you're going to use the option activity as your signal, of course, then you can manage it as you wish. But this one, it kind of matches up, right? They're going a little bit further out. They're going 3 months out. So yeah, you could use a weekly chart for Hilton. But I like this, and I like going out to January. So I started a position in this one. Like I said, I'm not putting on any full-time trades, or full size trades right now until quarter end is over. I think this Marriott also is looking interesting. We'll see what Vail Resorts does tomorrow. I do like this trade, even though it kind of looks like it broke the 50 today, but we'll see what Vail Resorts does tomorrow. Also kind of in this space, more travel leisure, I guess. Expedia, I think, is still interesting looking. Right, it looks like the RSI is continuing to improve. Well, it actually gave back the gains. I looked at this around 12 o'clock. So I did not do anything in this one, but I've been watching it here at the 50-day moving average. But maybe wait for a move above value. But it does look like the RSI is trying to improve. So that's a name for now. Keep an eye on. Couple other trades. This was a trade that we talked about. There was calls, I think, on Monday that alerted us to this I name, and it's been up and away in this particular name. So up 6.5% again today. So really has had some momentum to it. And again, a name that you don't necessarily have to trade in options, right? It's a $22 stock. It's a high implied volatility. So you can make it easier and just trade stock, in my opinion, if you like this name on the breakout. But yeah, they keep going after calls. This was January calls that we saw today? Yeah, some January calls. Just two other trades, or just one other trade because I'm already almost 20 minutes into the video. PVH. Kind of an interesting name. Oh, sorry. And then one more trade after that. One more trade after that I wanted to mention. This was a name that had good earnings and it just fell apart. So it looks like a buyer coming back into it after it's been a couple weeks since they reported earnings. Speaking of a name that's fallen apart as well, JBL, JBL. I have to look a little bit more into the earnings call because the outright numbers in Jabil were really good. They beat on the bottom line, on the top line, and then they raised guidance, and the stock fell apart. It just, for whatever reason, does not want to break out. In the pre-market, or the after the name reported earnings, oh, come on, Thinkorswim. If you go to back to the earnings day, which was a couple days ago, this thing again, initial reaction was to rally, and sellers came in and knocked it down. So I don't know. I have to go. Like I said, I have to go through the earnings report, but they went in pretty hard today, and I'll show you the. Sorry, my systems are just jamming up. They do this almost every day at this time of day. And if we bring up JBL, you could see that a total of 6,000 of these went up. January 27 calls pretty aggressively, right? So some nice positioning. And just like I mentioned, and this was actually January of, not this January, I believe. I have to double check that. I thought it was January 2021. But still, regardless, a pretty aggressive trade, and somebody likes it. And they went right at the money, 27 straight calls. All right, so that's it for today's video. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.